Best.Podcast.Ever is sponsored by the Gertzberg Law Firm, a full-service business law firm in Cleveland and Chagrin Falls that's changing the way businesses retain their attorneys. Go to gertzberglaw.com to learn more. While you're there, check out Cover My Six, a complete legal audit of the 6 areas that most often create or prevent business lawsuits and government investigations. Go to covermysix.com to learn how we keep you safe. Enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to listen to the best podcast ever recorded.
And really, at the end of the day, I learned that ego can be the biggest blocker to being able to grow.
Hey folks, Alex Gertzberg here. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. This is Best Podcast Ever, and this is a limited series that we've created called My Colossal Failure. And as the name would suggest, it's about entrepreneurs who have failed, which if you are a good entrepreneur, if you're a successful entrepreneur, you've done many times and you've done colossally. We all have those stories, and I am no different. I have failed many times, but every entrepreneur that I know that I admire, that's an inspiration to me, has these great stories and has these great examples that show that as successful as they look today, they never just waved a magic wand and became this way instantly. They failed over and over and over again, and usually in a massive way. And there's a good reason for that. They take risks. Entrepreneurs are wired for risk. They are prepared to make big bets. The bigger the bet, the bigger the potential failure. You end up looking stupid. You end up feeling like shit. You have a lot of explaining to do to your spouse, to your investors, to your employees. And it's jarring. A lot of times you end up in therapy. It's traumatizing, when you run out of money, when you can't make payroll, when you have to shut down a business. So what you're about to listen to is one of a handful, about a half dozen episodes that we recorded within the last couple of months that we've put together into this series called My Colossal Failure. And you're going to hear some great, great failures and challenges. Some of them aren't really failures in the sense that the entrepreneur caused the thing to happen. They are just big, giant meatballs of a challenge that ordinarily would be seemingly impossible to overcome. What I will tell you is every single person that is on this show that I interview is someone that not just bounced back, but bounced back big. Okay. I mean, these are people who run giant companies now and who learned, who are confident today, who had to break through the imposter syndrome that a lot of us entrepreneurs have anyway, but some of us have even bigger imposter syndromes than other people because of these failures. But you get back up and you dust yourself off and you just keep fighting that fight, and you do it enough times and you learn strategically enough to where success is inevitable. It's inevitable. So I hope you enjoy this episode and this entire series. I will see you guys on the other side. Thanks, folks. Aaron Grossman, how are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
Good, man. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks for coming back. You are a returning guest, one of a small handful of an elite crew, elite subset of our 140, I think this is going to be like 140 episodes, to come back and be willing to answer my inane questions a second time. I appreciate it.
I love the word elite. I mean, when I was wrestling in college, I always wanted to be considered an elite wrestler, but that never happened. But I'm an elite podcast interviewer with you, interviewee.
Aaron, I will come up with additional nouns to add to the word elite if you want. I'm good at it. Elite window washer. If you've ever washed a good window, I will help create that category for
I'm
you?
definitely at the beginner level of that.
Okay.
Maybe the beginner level. I don't know which way to wipe. I watched The Karate Kid though.
Okay. All right. That's something.
Yeah. Wax on, wax off.
Yes.
Paint the fence.
You've already got the foundation. You got the foundation. Folks, Aaron Grossman needs no introduction, but the first episode that I had with him was phenomenal and actually very highly downloaded. Aaron, I don't know if you knew that. It was one of the highest ones that we had. People wanted to hear what you had to say, and they were smart to do it because it was really just filled with great entrepreneurial nuggets.
Awesome.
Which made it an easy call for me to call you. And actually, I think this idea of sharing your story of woe, of your big colossal existential crisis or two, I think you might have been the first person I shared that idea with, and I was pleasantly surprised when you said, "Yeah, I've got a lot of those." Oh, come on,
more than I could count.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate it. So again, folks, the concept is simple, right? If you're an entrepreneur, you take risks. You put your neck out there, and you can't succeed without doing that, and without doing it often, and without making them big, right? And frankly, if you're not taking enough risks, or you're not taking big risks, then at least I believe that will affect how fast you grow and how large you grow. So you really can't talk about really good growth without thinking of you, Aaron, because you've grown big, right? I think we talked about this. So this was episode 122, folks, is where you'll find Aaron's first episode. And I want to say that we talked in that episode about how you had achieved your dream of building $100 million company. And then the question becomes, okay, do I hang it up because I've hit my goal, or do I go even bigger and go for the $1 billion company? And I think that where we left it was, Alex, I'll get back to you on that.
Well, we're going for that $1 billion goal.
I expect nothing less.
The goal is to be able to attain that by the end of 2027, 2028 timeframe. So we've got a lot of things to do very quickly. But honestly, we've got a great team that's in place, great leadership, and I believe the right foundation to get there. So it's really going to be a story of execution. And I think if we can execute to the plan that we've created, I think we'll get there. So we'll see.
Yeah. I have no doubt you'll get there for sure. All right, Aaron. So when I said to you, what was your biggest failure? Defining failure not as a negative thing, but as a learning experience, as a positive thing, as a thing that you broke through, overcame, and allowed that to build you into the great organization that you've got. A couple came immediately to mind. So start with the first one. Let's go chronologically.
Yeah. Well, I think to kind of set up the two failures that I'll talk about is the theme around both of them is ego. And, as you said, to kick this off, as an entrepreneur, you have to be confident in being able to take risks. And that not all of the risks that you take are going to create wins, right? And as you said earlier, there's, failures are really not true failures. Failures are a great opportunity to learn if you're reflecting in the correct way and you're allowing those risks to always pay off, because a risk can pay off if you make the right one and things go the way you want, but they also pay off when they don't go the right way and you choose to learn from that, because you can still grow. And, as an aspiring entrepreneur starting out, I was 27 years old, and things started to, the risks that I took were working. It's inherent that my ego started to get bigger too, right? And thinking that I can do anything, I can figure this whole thing out. And really, at the end of the day, I learned that ego can be the biggest blocker to being able to grow. And in a lot of ways, I had to learn how to get out of the way. Unfortunately, I had to learn that the hard way in two very specific instances that we'll talk about today. The first one happened very early on in our business. I think we were maybe 3 or 4 years into the company. And we had acquired a new client. It was a restaurant out of Detroit, Michigan. It was a new restaurant, Tony Roma's, old restaurant, the ribs place. But they were opening up a new facility in Novi, Michigan, out of Detroit. And
so what year is this approximately?
2003, 2004 timeframe.
Okay.
And so we're still very new. We have a few $1 million of revenue at this point. And I thought that having a finance degree from Miami of Ohio, that I could figure out accounting when we're small. So I was the one doing all of the invoicing and the collection of receivables and, getting everything ready to give to our accountant at the end of the month to do a financial statement. But I was doing all of the accounting basically in between. Well, I wasn't doing it really well. I was really focused on the revenue generation part. So I loved billing for invoicing on business that we've conducted for our client, and this one in particular was this Tony Roma's client, and wasn't paying.
What was? I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm a chronic interrupter, Aaron. Forgive me.
That's okay.
What was so this was a staffing job that they hired you to do?
Yeah, it was a unique staffing job in that we were actually staffing and becoming the employer of record for every single employee at the restaurant. So they hired about 160 people throughout the restaurant, and they were all on our payroll. Well, I wasn't paying attention to the collection of the invoices that I was sending out. And, fast forward a few months, and we had about a $360,000 receivable, if I'm not mistaken, give or take. And the restaurant wasn't performing well, and they went out of business.
And this is an outlay of money that you've made. You've made payroll, right? You've paid the employees.
I've been paying the employees every week
out of your own pocket, and
Correct.
You're waiting for Tony Roma's to reimburse you, basically.
Correct. So it's really $360,000 of money gone. It was money gone, and they went bankrupt. They didn't pay us anything because of that. And fortunately, I had an investor at that time who believed in us and believed in the business and saw that we were scaling pretty quickly, and so he gave us the loan for it. And fortunately, we were able to continue to grow and pay that off. But one of the biggest lessons there was realizing that I can't do that. I can't be the controller or the bookkeeper for our business. I can't do that. And at the time, my investor was so upset. He was out of Michigan, and he's like, we're gonna have to bring accounting to Michigan. You obviously can't do this. And being the entrepreneur person that I am, and really wanting this to be a journey for me, I was adamant that you got to let me learn from this. I think I've learned what I did wrong here. Give me that trust, knowing that I'm not going to make this mistake again. And thankfully he did. And Matt Lyon, who's our chief financial officer today, has been a godsend. He's been with me for over 15 years at this point, and we've been true partners along this route. So not only did I kind of get it right the next time, I learned from that mistake, but I learned in such a way that I found a true financial partner. Without him, I would not be where we're at today. And so I'm actually I have a lot of gratitude for that terrible experience, that so-called failure, because I learned greatly from it.
Did you, the duration of time from, oh shit, I've got a problem, to problem solved is how long?
The problem solved with the loan that they gave. It was a good 4 to 6 weeks of negotiating around that. So that was really tense. But at the same time, I think as an entrepreneur, I've never, still even to this day, I probably should be really worried about the money side of it. Like, I just believe so much in what we're doing, and I believe so much in being able to get to where we need to go, that I never thought for a second he wouldn't kind of bail us out. I just believed that he would, and he did, thankfully.
What does that 4 to 6 week period feel like for you? If you can put yourself back into that time, I mean, stressful seems like an obvious adjective, right?
Yeah, stress would be an obvious adjective. Again, I think these are those moments where I'm probably different than a lot of people. At least my wife would tell me that I kind of just eat stress for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It doesn't it doesn't affect me in a terrible way. I don't like crawl up into a ball. Instead, I just, again, because I think I just believe so much in what we're doing that I just was, I was almost like, it felt like a competition.
Yeah.
How am I going to figure out how to win this? How am I going to win this moment? And so I never really like thought about what could be. Never thought about the end of the business. I never thought that, even though I recognize after the fact that very much, if he didn't give us that loan, we were done. But I never thought that way ever. It never crossed my mind. I just said, we're going to figure this out, and I'm going to show him why this needs to keep going.
I want to deconstruct that a little bit, Aaron, because I aspire to have that kind of mentality. And I tell myself, and I know every entrepreneur who has gone through that kind of crisis, whether it's a financial one or a personnel issue or a client issue, wants to have that sort of steel resolve, right? That ability to just kind of instinctively know, I'm going to figure this out, right? But for some of us, me included, it takes like Post-it notes all over the office saying, you've been through this, you can do this, you've got this. I want to know, how did that resolve? How did that confidence, where does that come from? Can you talk about how that evolved?
Well, it comes from my athletic background, having wrestled since I was 6 years old and wrestling in college. It is that one sport where you literally make a choice, a personal choice, to put yourself through physical and mental hell every day. Every day you have to go and just completely exhaust yourself in whatever it is you're doing. And I really believed, and have always believed, that I know that most people have never made that personal choice to do that, put themselves through that kind of agony for a moment of glory. And I think that mindset that I really created within myself at that moment during my time as an athlete really is transcended into my professional career. I feel that no one has actually gone through what I've gone through, so I'm going to win. I'm going to figure it out.
Well, and I imagine that's a one-on-one sport. There's a winner and a loser that walks off that ring, off that mat every time. Right. So you have to decide, how bad do you want to be a winner? Right. That's a really interesting observation, Aaron. I imagine that the lessons, because you wrestled for forever, right?
Yeah. 20 something years. I'm a wrestling coach now too. So
yeah, I mean, I imagine the lessons that you take out of that, aside from just the discipline and the confidence, but just like all of the coaching and the inspiration. I mean, it has to come into play. You probably hear, the coach's voice still sometimes, I imagine.
Oh yeah.
Even now.
Yeah. It's coaching in high school to me was some of the greatest gifts that's ever been given to me as a human. Like, I just learned so much about myself and what I'm capable of, and that I own my experience, and the inspirational moments throughout high school and then even college. Just, I'm not that smart of a guy, honestly. And I think that helps because I'm just simple like this. Like, I just take the things that I really believe that my coaches taught me in high school and college. And those are the things that I live every single day of my life in business. And it's just that simple. I treat every day like it's a wrestling match or it's a wrestling practice, and how much am I going to put in and how much do I want to get better every single day. And, it's interesting I'm going to be 47 this week, actually. Like, I realize that, life doesn't have to be that way. It's what I was taught to be. Every time I come into work, it's about growing. It's not about like, how do I just make this a lifestyle business or anything like that. I just don't even understand what that means. Being a part of the Entrepreneurs Organization, which I know you're a part of, like, that taught me that there are different ways people approach business. It's just not ingrained in my blood. I don't know anything different. So anytime I deal with adversity, I just treat it like it's a wrestling match.
Yeah.
Like, there's always a position, there's always an opening. You got to find it. That's what makes a good wrestler, an elite wrestler, is being able to find that position when no one else can see it and you win. And that's how I attack business as well.
That's awesome. I was thinking, I've never wrestled or done, well, tennis was my only one-on-one sport. Soccer was my sport, but some of the things that you were saying reminded me of chess. Do you play chess?
I do play chess.
Oh, we got to play sometime. So I think chess has a lot of life lessons that I talk to my sons about. And you have to have this constant eye out for opportunity and for consequences, you know? But I digress because that's a whole nother conversation.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you did mention that because I actually tell people wrestling is human. It's human chess. It's exactly what it's exact same. It's the exact same thing as chess, as playing chess.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that, one move is going to potentially create 3 counter moves. And then from those counter moves, can you hit an attack?
Yeah.
Or, or vice versa. It's the exact same thing. And that is just how life is. That's how you think about solving problems. That's how you think about vision and strategy, is about, if I make this move, what are the 7 moves that can happen afterward? Or what are the 3 things that can happen wrong?
Right.
And I learned that way of learning how to strategize through things through the sport of wrestling. Same thing.
Yeah. Well, and having only watched wrestling and never done it, what's painfully obvious is you have to make those calculations in split seconds.
Yes.
It's totally instinctive.
It's totally instinctive. You have to practice these things so many times that you've felt it once before.
Yeah.
So when you feel that thing, that there could be these 3 openings that come from it, and what do you do with that? Same thing as chess. Like, when you make that first move with chess, you already know the 6 moves planned, depending on how that, and then depending on that person.
So, we should probably get to the next story, but this conversation is just creating more questions for me. Fear is something you have to be able to deal with in wrestling too, and in business. You have to be able to recognize it, see it as a positive thing, as an emotion that can drive you as opposed to paralyze you. Confirm this for me, or tell me I'm full of shit. But do you see fear and your relationship with fear playing a significant role in both wrestling and in business, and in that particular, and in failures, challenges?
That's funny you're bringing this up, because that's you just brought up like a central part of my life with fear. My relationship with fear. In wrestling, that was the one thing that stopped me from being who I could have been in that sport, and it still drives me crazy even today. My wife always like, why do you still, you're doing so well in business, why do you still reflect on your athletic career and what you weren't able to accomplish? And it was because of fear. Like, I would do all the things I needed to do to win, but there were times where I would be in a match or preparing to start a match, and that fear would just overwhelm me, and it would almost zap my energy. And I was half the person that I was in practice than I was in competition. And it plagued me from high school through college. Like, I could still wrestle at a Division I college level, really only wrestling 50% of what I was capable of being. And it killed me. And I told myself, I don't want to live my life this way. I can't let fear do this to me. And I promised myself that I would never let it stop me the way it did in the sport and in my professional career. And so I live with fear. I've lived with fear. Fear's become my driver in my professional career. Obviously there's a lot of positives that have come from it, because anytime I'm scared, I just run through it. Instead of just letting it hide and stop and make me go numb, I just run through it. I won't let it stop me. At the same time, as I ended up taking a sabbatical 2 years ago for the first time. 3 months, I just stopped everything. And a lot of that was because fear had ended up becoming the driver in my driver's seat. Like, it was controlling how I made decisions and saying yes to everything, because I was afraid that somebody was going to, pass me by, or there's an opportunity that's going to pass me by. And at the end of it was so compelling in every decision that I made, that fear was driving every decision, that it was almost killing me as a person. Like I couldn't, there was no slowing down. And so what I've had to learn over the last couple of years is how with my relationship with fear is to know that it's always going to be at the table, but I can't let it be in the driver's seat anymore. And it's a constant work in progress. I think I've gotten a lot better in the last couple of years of letting it still sit at the table, but not necessarily drive everything that I do. But it's hard. It continues to be hard. And it all stems from my experience in wrestling and how I let it take over, my ability to be who I could have been in that sport.
Yeah. Yeah. I've lost one trial and it haunts me. And every time I walk into a courtroom, that's the only thing I think about. And I think that you're right. It does drive you. Fear does drive you when you recognize it, right? But it also is kind of like, I don't know. Tell me if this is true for you. It's kind of like this nagging, annoying mosquito, right? That I kind of wish wasn't there. It's because to me, it's tied to regret. It's tied to, wishing that something was different about your past. And who needs that? But to me, ninja level mastery of achievement comes from seeing it, recognizing it, and saying, you're actually going to help me now. You're not going to hurt me, fear. I see you. This is not going to be annoying. I accept it, and you're going to push me forward farther than frankly I would be even without you. That to me is ninja level mastery, and I'm definitely not there because I still see it as annoying, and as regretting.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the things that I've thought about, especially in the last couple of years, was that one of the greatest gifts of fear for me is that it does help to control my ego. Because I can't, even today, I can't see a lot of what others tell me they see of me. Like when you say my business is successful or anything like that, like I actually don't, I know that it is when I say, how big we are and where we've been, starting from scratch, and we were on pace to do over 150 million before COVID, still do over 100 million with COVID. And I know that sounds like a big number. And I know that when I was younger, I'm like, that was what I always wanted, but I still feel like it's nothing. Like I haven't even started yet. I still feel there's so much to do, and there's so much to learn. And I think a lot of that is because of the fear base still is at the table. It's sitting there, and I don't feel I'm a great CEO yet. I feel like there's so much more for me to learn, and there's so many things I'm not doing really well. And so all of those things are because that fear around it all makes me not see me for who I could see myself. So the negative side of that, though, is that I have a hard time looking back on things and saying that was really good. Like, I've done a lot of speeches over the years, and my wife has seen a few, and she's like, wow, you did such a good job. And I'm like, I don't think I did. I just never felt good about it. And so that's probably the downfall, is not really able to kind of reflect and say, wow, that was awesome. Yeah. Maybe hopefully one day when I'm done, I can finally do that. But right now, fear still, it doesn't enable me to really enjoy those moments. It's like, I got to keep going.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so crazy how every entrepreneur I know has that same sort of, I'm just not there yet. I have not fulfilled my potential, even though by any objective standard, they're like in the top 0.1% of what anyone will ever achieve. It's, on the one hand, I think the positive spin on that is, well, you're humble. That's humility, right? A therapist would probably say you're neurotic, right?
Right.
But, well, here. So let's apply everything we've just talked about with your next story, right? So fast forward now to when does this next thing happen?
The next one was 2011, and
so 8 years later.
8 years later, and we we had gotten through the Great Recession in a really healthy way. It scaled up to, we'd grown by, I think 200 or 300%, after 2012. And we were looking at new software to our software, our central software. It's called an applicant tracking system. And that's how we basically run our business. And instead of taking like tried and true softwares, my ego was saying, hey, there's this company that's doing a beta. They're trying to create a software for staffing. And maybe I can get them to build it under, the vision that I think that it could look like. And so we took on that challenge, not really, at the time, again, we were about a $40 million a year business. So, it's significant business, and I'm here risking everything, the central platform of how we do our business, with something that has never been done before. And it's not tried and true. And fast forward, and it was a complete failure. When we went to go run payroll, and at that time, I think we were doing payroll for a little over 1,000 people a week. We couldn't do payroll at all. And I felt terrible because our people who ran payroll for us internally, were up for close to 48 straight hours to try to manually get this done, to get people paid, because we have culturally, we have a lot of really good people that want to do great things, and they were willing to make that sacrifice, which I'm so thankful for. But I felt terrible about, because I know that moment that my ego was driving that. And I had just at that time created an advisory board, like literally right then. And I remember the first meeting, I was giving them this sheet that I had created at the time, and it talked in a very simple manner about how we ran this business on one page. It talked about our differentiators, and one of them being technology. And an advisor, who's still an advisor today, Sean Dorsey, he looks at me and he's like, well, who's running your technology? You have technology as a differentiator here. Who's running your technology for you internally? And it hit me like a brick. Like, I'm just looking at him with like glassy eyes, and I'm like, no one, me.
And you're looking at him.
And he's like, you think you're a technology executive? And, I'm just dealing with the after effects of the software implosion. And I realized at that time, I'm like, wow, I let ego get to me again, didn't I? And here we are again with, this time it was probably a $700,000 mistake, but we were a much bigger company, so we could absorb it at that time. But it almost broke us for months. Like for 4 or 5 months, we had terrible technology. It was really hard for us to find talent in our system. So it was a terrible moment. But at that time, I actually ended up hiring a CIO at the time, and he was able to kind of turn things around really quickly. And now we have, I would argue, we do have really great technology inside of our system that makes us very different, and we can demonstrate why. And by the way, through that whole process, ended up creating a technology company called EmployeeStream, which is now just rebranded to Able, and it's one of the fastest growing startups in Northeast Ohio the last few years.
Do you think that would have happened but for this crisis?
No, again, it's those moments of where, you have these, what you call failure moments, but it's what do you do in that moment? And I just have always chosen to look at failure as an opportunity to learn and grow, instead of looking at it as like, oh, I messed up. I let it hurt me for about a second. Yeah. And then I figure out, okay, there's an opportunity for me to learn and grow from this. Let's figure this out. And so I become so hyper-focused on that we end up finding these things and end up becoming much better because of it.
Did you actually miss any payrolls or have to delay them?
There was probably one that, delayed a day, but, we have really good people that work in this company that care about what they do.
I'll tell you what, man, I've said this before on this podcast a number of times, but I'll say it again. I don't think that there's any emotion quite like what the entrepreneur experiences when they are worried about missing payroll. A lot of employees are living paycheck to paycheck, and you feel that burden on your shoulder for every one of your employees. And I have been through this through multiple companies that for whatever reason, whether it was a software glitch or cash flow or whatever, there's nothing worse than thinking, holy shit, this Friday when these guys are expecting a paycheck, they may not get it. And that's a lot of mortgages that are going to bounce, credit cards that are going to go into default or whatever. Nobody feels that the way the CEO or the founder, the owner feels that. And that's just, you said earlier, I eat stress for breakfast. That's a stress personally that I can't approximate with anything else. That's like to me, that's always been the highest level of stress.
Oh yeah. I don't think people look at entrepreneurs, especially ones that have shown success, that like, this is easy, but they don't realize just that statement there.
Yeah.
We are responsible for payroll. We're responsible for making sure that people are compensated fairly and on time, because they've got their responsibilities for their families. So it's not just the employees that we're responsible for paying, it's their families and the people that are tied to them and the commitments that they've made to other people financially, right? We're tied to all of that. And that's an incredible responsibility that we have to continuously be mindful of. And that's a stress that lives with every entrepreneur until they're done being an entrepreneur. And, for us, I mean, we're in the employment business, but that means we're also in the payroll business. So we cut checks for upwards of 4,000 people every week. So it is an incredible responsibility. So when you think about that mistake, we weren't just about paying our people internally. It was about paying all these temporary employees that are our employees working on behalf of businesses throughout the United States. It's very scary.
Yeah. Wow. How do you keep your ego in check now?
Well, ever since then, there's been a huge mindfulness to it, realizing that those two mistakes alone cost over $1 million, and they were completely driven by ego, because I didn't see what I really needed to see up front, that I couldn't do those two things. I can understand them. I can stay at a Holiday Inn and know how they should look and how they should be, but I don't know the intricate details of running either of those two areas. And just, so I'm conscious of that. So even now, so I guess, fast forward, this is actually good. And I didn't think about this. So a couple of years ago, and I'm an entrepreneur like you. And so I'm always going after the shiny new toy. I want to change something, even though it works, because I can see how you can do it better. And you get to $100 million and you have, a couple hundred people, and suddenly you can't just, as an entrepreneur, make the changes that you used to make. And I'm naturally someone that can take on a huge load of work and just prioritize it and get it all done. When you get bigger and bigger, the businesses can't absorb some of the large initiatives that I wanted to just run through, that I was always used to running through. And a couple of years ago, even my advisory board at the time mentioned that the amount of big projects that you have, you're forcing your company to kind of execute against. Just one would be what one company would do for a year, and you have 6. And they're like, it might be better for you to kind of figure out how to walk away from the business a little bit, because you might be your biggest roadblock at this point. And I took that to heart, because I had those 2 experiences before where, my ego had gotten in the way. And it took a long time for me to reflect on, what would be the right thing for this company. And the right thing to me ended up being finding somebody who could be the president of this company, who has been accustomed to working in larger organizations, who knows how to lead people to scale. And even though my ego wants to tell me I can figure that out, I could do that, I recognize that that's probably not my biggest strength. My biggest strength is the entrepreneurial side, is the visioning side. It's the finding the squirrel or building or taking a squirrel and purple squirrel and creating something real from it. That's my gift. My gift is not running $100+ million company to $1 billion. I will mess it up before I make it right. And so I ended up hiring a president. His name's Doug Danduran, back in March, April of 2019. And it's the coolest thing ever. Like, he is awesome. He's awesome to work with. We truly are partners, and he's been bringing in great, amazing talent and continuing to build within the vision that he agreed to when he came aboard. And I didn't have to make $1 million mistake to make this one happen, right? I realized from those 2 mistakes earlier that I need, when that time came, I was able to check my ego in the moment and do the right thing versus making a mistake to figure out what the right thing needed to be.
Yeah. I mean, surrounding yourself with people smarter than you is huge. The singular focus is huge too. And when you said that, it made me start thinking about EOS, which I know you guys are big on as well, right?
Right.
That has helped me keep the shiny objects off the table, but only when people around me are courageous enough, or just not even courageous, but just when they remind me, hey, this is not one of our rocks. This isn't even one of our 1 year goals, right? Do you really want to take resources away from all these other things because you believe that this is where we should put our attention now, And it is a challenge for me. It sounds like you got here to be able to say, wait a second, yeah, these guys are telling me what I'm paying them to tell me. They've got the focus that we have. This is why we have EOS. This is why they're here. And I feel like I need to listen to them more sometimes, because those bright, shiny objects, especially when I get caught up in the narrative of it and the emotion of it, I'm like, God, this, we got to go after this. We have to go after this client. This is going to be a game changer for us. And there's opportunity costs there.
Right.
And
right. Exactly. And like when we have a vision, and it's a real one. We really do feel we're going to get to $1 billion in revenue, and it's all on paper. You can see how it happens.
Yeah.
And it's just about execution. And so I have to be very cautious about the visionary in me trying to kind of play with things when we already have the plans there. All we have to do is execute against this. We need to fine tune the areas in which we execute against, but we don't have to create something completely new to make that happen. And even now, like, I get a lot of opportunities for different things, or different ways in which our company can partner. And, I'm much better at vetting those things out, and even saying no to things that I know are good things to do, but they're just outside of this plan. And so why do I need to do it? Even though it's a good thing to do, which is this is actually probably one of the harder lessons that I'm learning now, is to say no to good things. Because, that fear, especially that fear-based mindset that I used to have, would have said yes to all of it, because I can't let go of an opportunity that I think has legs.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've got this $1 billion opportunity with legs. Now I have to be protective of that.
Yeah.
And that's very new for me.
Yeah. Fear is the first word in FOMO. That's what you just described, right? Yeah. Aaron, this was awesome. Thank you. I'm so glad we did this. I'm so glad that you said yes to this experiment. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm always willing to share, and I appreciate you're trusting me around these kind of interesting questions.
This was great. And actually, I may there's a whole nother topic that you brought up that I haven't even scratched the surface of, and that I want to, and that is the advisory board. Getting one, working with one. So I wrote that down. So I'm probably going to harass you at like a year from now to come back and do another limited series with me on advisory boards. Folks, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. I know I did. I learned a lot. Aaron, every minute I spend with you, I learn something, which is why this entire podcast is so self-serving, just interviewing great entrepreneurs that I admire so much. You can't help but glean great wisdom from every one of you. So awesome. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we thank you for listening. And remember to check out the Gertzberg Law Firm. Whether you are starting, running, growing, or transitioning a business, or if you need to create or update your wills, trust, or estate plan, our team will give you an incredible level of personalized attention and a passionate commitment to meet your objectives. We are veteran-owned, and our award-winning lawyers have the highest ranking from Super Lawyers and Avo. We have also recently received the coveted Weatherhead 100 Upstarts Award for a second year in a row, and we are among the first Ohio business law firms to offer our clients a non-billable alternative on every single matter we handle for them, and opt out of the billable hour. What we are most proud of, though, are the many things our clients rely on us for. We successfully defend them in court, but we also help them avoid the courtroom with our Cover My Six service. We protect their assets through good estate and succession planning, and we assist our clients in many non-legal business services like recruiting and business development. We want our clients to feel confident in their choices and to help them resolve any issues or potential problems quickly and efficiently so they can get back to what they love, running their businesses. More than just litigators, we are trusted advisors, problem solvers, and growers of businesses. Let us help you and your company. Call us or find us online to learn more. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.